struggle. We appreciate that everyone that's out here. You need to take a second to imagine this environment without this tree canopy in the middle of the summer in the heat and how it impacts the air quality and public health of our community. This is why we are calling to action. So we're going to get this started, and we're going to start it off with, we have some of our elected officials. I would like Councilor Janey to come up and say a few words, please.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Yes. Good morning. My name is Janey, and I'm president of the Boston City Council, the most diverse city council in Boston's history. I need your help, Dwaign. You got to make the feedback stop.
Yeah. The feedback.
Yeah, the speakers.
Hello, hello. Testing. Mic check. 1, 2. Can you hear me? Here we go. All right, you guys. My name is Janey, and I'm president of the most diverse city council in Boston's history. I'm also the District 7 City Councilor, proudly representing Roxbury, South End, Dorchester, and Fenway. Before I get started, I just want to shout out my sisters in service. I'm joined here by my own State Senator, Sonia ChangDiaz. Give it up. And my sister on the City Council, Michelle Wu. So I'm really glad to be here, and I want to thank many of the organizers and the activists. I want to start by thanking Ace. Dwaign, you guys have been here in this fight. We did a walkthrough sometime last year with activists who are trying to save these trees. A lot has happened since then. I just want to take a few moments to remind us of how this boulevard was created. This boulevard was created to fill a hole that was left by the highway that was coming through our community here. And we can never forget that this boulevard was created through structural racism. And so anything that happens on this boulevard must be driven by the residents and activists in this community. We can no longer allow for the powers that be to just keep doing things to us. So we have to make sure that whatever happens here, that at the forefront is racial justice, environmental justice, and economic justice. That is what we have to continue to fight for in our community. I also want to remind us that this boulevard is named for the First Lady of Roxbury, Melnea Cass. Indeed, when she was a young girl, she was fighting, so 100 years ago, when the right to vote was won for women, for white women, she was fighting to expand that as a young girl. We can't forget what is happening unless just a few short weeks from today and what we need to do in terms of the election. It is so important that we continue to use our voice and our power. We are building power in this movement, and we must use it at the local level, where we're talking about protecting the tree canopy and the heat island that is here in Roxbury, or at the national level. So I want to thank all the residents, all the activists, all the community organizations, all of my elected officials who serve with me in government at the state level and at the city level. Thank you all for being here, and let's keep up the fight. One thing that you should know, even though they're saying they're going to pull back the trees, we're going to still force their hand and have a city council hearing to discuss the plans for this. So our voices, and I'm proud to be joined with Michelle Wu on that city council hearing order, as well as Julia Mejia, my sister Julia Mejia. So we are still bringing that hearing order forward so that we can continue to have this conversation. Thank you, and let's continue the fight. I want to now bring up my sister in service, Michelle Wu. Give it up for Michelle.
Thank you so much. My President Janey, and your district councilor here. I just want to thank everyone for not just being here today, but being here for so long. Today we're here to mark a moment, right? Not a victory, a moment where nearly a decade of activism finally broke through. And the city has now said, we're going to take a pause, We're pulling down this plan to rethink, but we need to make sure that that also means there are going to be solid commitments about protecting these trees, about protecting the health and the climate justice goals for this community, the heart of the city, but also about who will be at that table making decisions for the next plan. So I just want to emphasize, this is a community that is strong, that is active, that is clear about what the priority should be. That climate justice is racial justice, is economic justice. And for the Black and brown residents in Boston, and for Roxbury, it is important that we follow the lead of community members who have been saying clearly, loudly for 9 years now that these trees represent safety, health, shade, well-being, coolness in an urban heat island. And this is important not just for residents today, to protect what has taken decades to grow, or decades for the trees to get to the beautiful place that they are now, but will protect residents here for decades to come.
That's right.
So I just want to thank this coalition because, you know, all of us elected officials here, you know, myself especially, we are just here to celebrate you, to thank you for all of your activism, to stand with you, and we will make sure that as we move forward, this community's voices are heard, and that we will reject false choices. Right? We reject the proposition that we must choose between climate justice and environmental justice or safe streets. We deserve all of that in this community and throughout the city, and we will make sure that that happens in Roxbury. Now back to MC, Mr. Dwaign Tyndal. I'm so sorry. I'm going to do the full proper introduction here. Your state senator, someone who has been at this fight longer than either of us here, one of the longest serving women in the Boston delegation, someone who's always at the forefront when it comes to justice and climate justice here. Senator Sonia ChangDiaz.
Thank you, Michelle. And, you know, the three of us are really just the warm-up act. We're the openers for the Real Speaking program. So, you know, don't wait until what comes after us. But I just wanted to layer on a word of thanks and, you know, how I come to this issue, not just as a senator, but as a resident, as a parent. But first, the thanks. We've all become, you know, familiar and fond of late of the, I gotta keep, the mask keeps slipping down below the nose. We gotta cover the whole bottom of the face. We've all become familiar and fond with the phrase, nevertheless, she persisted. And I think about persistence when I think about Friends of the Melnea Cass Boulevard. It has been, as has been alluded to, many, many years in the making to bring us today, and this is again not an end point, but just a midpoint, a pause point, and hopefully a turning point to get to a better plan. But I remember many years ago when the Friends helped the city to secure the commitment of federal funding to do improvements on this boulevard in the first place, before there were specific plans about the trees and the design. When we ask community members to be at the table in order to help pull in federal dollars, which of course we should, that's as it should be, we need to not forget them and forget you and forget the residents of this community when it's time to do the specific design. And that's a message that I will continue to bring throughout this process. So I thank you for your persistence, and I urge you to continue to persist in this fight. Thank you. Walking over here this morning, you know, of course I'm surveying the street as I drove up this way and parked over here and walked over, and I was thinking about, I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I was thinking about the fact that these trees that are currently here were planted in, if I get it wrong, correct me, but I believe 1981. Almost 40 years ago. And thinking about, if we lose this canopy, how many cycles of children, my children will be grown before this canopy returns. That's right. These children that we see here today will be fully grown and have their own children probably before we see this canopy fully restored. This is many generations of childhood experience, of family experience. Are we going to have a rich pedestrian life, bike activity? When I think about the great boulevards of the world, They're not just places that cars speed through. They're not just boulevards for cars. They're places where there is rich foot traffic. There's vibrant business, vibrant arts. And these are all things that this tree canopy is going to support and help thrive on this world-class boulevard as we wish it to be. So I think about the kind of experience that I want my children and your children to have in this space over the next 40 years. And we will not have that quality of experience without a rich, vibrant, beautiful, healthy tree canopy and all that comes with it. So I thank you so much for your fight, and I'm in this with you, not just as a lawmaker, but as a resident and as a mom. And I know we have moms out front here today with us as well. And I thank you guys all for making this beautiful, beautiful coalition.
Thank you for our elected officials coming out today. So we're going to go directly to our speakers. Can Dr. Britta Lundberg of the Climate Code Blue.
Thank you so much for inviting me here today. I'm Dr. Brita Lundberg. I'm a medical doctor. I'm an internist and infectious diseases expert. I represent Climate Code Blue, an organization of physicians and public health experts who believe that the climate crisis is like a code blue in a hospital and requires our urgent attention. I'm here to speak about the city's proposal to cut down 100 mature trees on Melnea Cass Boulevard, a busy thoroughfare that produces an outsized amount of traffic-related pollution. The removal of this tree canopy and these trees is an environmental justice issue, an equity issue, and importantly, a health issue. Why is it a health issue? Because cutting down these trees will exacerbate existing health inequity like asthma, COPD, and heart disease that disproportionately burden the residents of this community. Boston is already ranked 8th for U.S. cities with the highest rates of asthma. 1 in 8 children in Boston has an asthma diagnosis, and the prevalence is even higher in communities of color. Studies have shown that urban trees reduce asthma hospitalizations by removing dangerous pollutants and improve air quality. Removing this important tree canopy will remove that important filter, increasing pollution and particulate matter in the area, which will worsen asthma and COPD here. Increased air pollution is associated with increased mortality from COVID. This is certainly not the time to be increasing air pollution in the midst of a pandemic that thrives on air pollution. Heat-related illness. Trees can reduce severe heat in the summer. In Boston, historically red-lined neighborhoods like Roxbury have been shown to have less tree coverage, and because of the increased heat absorption of asphalt and big buildings, are much hotter than neighborhoods with extensive green space and trees. That's why they're known as heat islands. This is important because no other category of hazardous weather event in the United States has caused more fatalities over the last few decades than extreme heat. Removing trees will make residents in Roxbury more vulnerable to illnesses like heat stroke, heat exhaustion. Even a few degrees of excess heat is associated with greater risk of heart attack and stroke. Mental health. Trees are important to good mental health. They've been shown to improve mental health by reducing mental stress, incidents of violence in communities. They're important to healing. Studies in hospitals where patients could look trees out the window just 3 to 5 minutes showed decreased anger, anxiety, pain, and it helped them relax, according to medical research that studied people's blood pressure, tension, electrical brain activities. And finally, trees help combat climate change, which is a public health priority in Boston. In January, the City Council unanimously resolved that climate change is a health emergency. Removing trees will not help Boston reach its 2050 carbon reduction goals, not to mention when the smoke and pollutants from the wildfires in California come here, These trees are going to be helping you because they're going to filter out those pollutants and make you better. In June, Mayor Walsh pledged his commitment to making Boston a national leader in healing the wounds of our history and building a more just future. But you can't heal the wounds of history by cutting down trees in an environmental justice community. If Boston kills these trees, it will fail to reach its commitments to racial justice, to health equity, and to climate change. And it will harm the mental and physical health of the residents of that neighborhood and weaken the fabric of this community. It will be a lose for Boston, a lose for the mayor, a lose for the community. By saving these trees to offer health benefits to a community with much higher rates of chronic health conditions, including asthma, heart disease, and stroke, a vulnerable community, the mayor will demonstrate his leadership on equity, on environmental justice, and on health. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. I would like to call Ms. Williams a lifelong resident of Roxbury, also connected member of the Friends of Melnea Cass Boulevard.
Good morning. Thank everyone for being here today. Sorry. Phone just went off. My name is Tomiqua Williams, and I'm a native of Roxbury. I live and work in the immediate area. Live right here at Roxy Homes and work at Mandela Resident Cooperation. I've participated in the designs hearing, and the removal of these trees are off the table. It's inequitable, and thousands of families will be affected by this environmental racism. The monies for this project grown from appropriating from $25 million to $34 million without listening to communities' demands to kill this project. By the immediate community not participating, being ignored, and the city moving full steam ahead is an example of the colonial mentality for Roxbury. Everyone else thinking they know what's best for us Roxbury residents. As a resident living, working, raising a family, been here all my life and understand the history of Melnea Cass Boulevard, this is a devastation to the black and brown families' homes again. This is social injustice, and the outcome is detrimental to the health and the well-being, as the doctor said prior to me. Is it that we are the wrong complexion for protection? Roxbury lives matter.
That's right.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Now we're going to have Kevin from CLF. Conservation Law Foundation.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me here. I'm also a neighbor to Melnea Cass. I live about 8 blocks away on Washington Street, but so I'm not only standing here in solidarity with you as a neighbor, but also I'm representing my organization, the Conservation Law Foundation, which certainly stands in solidarity with Roxbury leaders who are urging the City of Boston and Mass DOT to listen to respond to the community concerns here. The City of Boston, as we've heard, faces severe consequences from climate change. Temperatures are rising. We're going to have more extreme heat here. And Roxbury has some of the hottest summer temperatures in this city. CLF is a longtime supporter of environmental justice and transportation systems that put people first. This project, in its current state, does not put people first. CLF is here to ensure and help ensure that Roxbury residents have a say in what happens in their neighborhood. And our letter to the City of Boston informs them of their failure to comply with the public shade tree law. That law requires that the city hold a public hearing to consider public comments before removing any trees. And the city and the Department of Transportation must comply with that law. They have to listen to the residents, and they have to address the community's concerns about tree removal, public health, and environmental justice. They need to listen and also make changes in the plans according to what they hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Is Bill Singleton here? Okay. Louis, can you? Yes, sir. Good morning. My name is Louis Elisa. I'm here representing the Garrison Trotter Neighborhood Association, which has 43 years of neighborhood association, but I'm a resident of Roxbury. I've been here since they started on this big dig issue. My church is 3 blocks away, but I'm a former EPA fellow and also represented the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs for 16 years, and I work for environmental trust issues. And the reason I'm here today, they mentioned save the trees, but I came to save my life. I know about the environment, and the trees represent our lives. The trees represent the filtering of the pollution. It represents respite from the heat. It represents opportunities for families and communities to stay together. The unthought out ideas of the city planning department, which is demonstrated through the reckless idea of trying to destroy hundreds of trees, what they're doing in Franklin Park, what they're doing on our public roadways, shows that they're out of touch with our communities and our people. Boston is supposed to be about families, and they're just trying to create, through a back door, the highways and access for large-scale industry to have their people come in and out without taking into consideration, we live here.
That's right.
This trees are for the community and everyone who lives here. Whether you're on Seaver Street or whether you're on Beacon Street, the trees make a difference. There's no deal that they can cut that will be beneficial for the residents of this city if they start destroying the canopy that filters the oxygen and gives us a better quality of life and creates opportunities for our children and our families to have some place to respite from all this transportation and all this development that's going on around them. Trees are our lives. So I came today, hopefully I can help the trees, but I came to save my life and the life of my neighbors and friends who basically grow as deep as the roots of these trees into the culture and history of Boston. So it's about save our lives as we help preserve the trees. Thank you. Amen. Can Dr. Ivonne? Did I pronounce it wrong?
No, that's
Ivonne?
good. Lalyre.
Lalyre? Yeah.
Hi. Hello, everybody. I wanted to tell you a little story. This is not the first time. That I was on the newspaper. This was in 1989. I was volunteering for the Walk for Hunger, and they gave me a sign that said "Stop" on one side and "Go" on the other. This was for the traffic to stop and let the people go. But at one point, soon there were so many people that the cars just couldn't deal with it. So I thought, well, all I have to do is go. They have to go. So I only used the go sign. And then all of a sudden this reporter from the Globe showed up and said, "Oh, can I take your picture?" And I said, "Yeah, okay." So he took the picture and he asked me for my name. And I said, no, don't put my name. So my name was not in the paper at that time. But it's the same. I want to say that this is the same thing again that happened at that time. I was so moved by how many people have responded to this hunger issue. I just thought this is so overwhelming. I cheered them. I said, "Hey, you only have 25 miles to go." I was right in Back Bay. "You only have 25 miles to go. You go." And this is what I want to say here again. Let's go. We can go. This is a movement. We started a movement for all the cities in the United States to start thinking about the trees and the importance of trees for all of us. We cannot take trees for granted anymore. We have been thinking that trees are just an adornment. It's just an extra thing for our environment. But they are our lungs, they are living beings, and they are part of us, and that we need to defend them. And so I want to thank everybody who came and who has supported me, all the officials, and my neighbors, my wonderful neighbors who are, look, they are over there, and everybody else from the Friends who have been working so hard for so many years to convince the city that they're in the wrong way, the wrong part of the line. But you know, we have to keep making people think again about what to do with our trees and our environment, because we don't have time. We don't have time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So here's the last word. When I came to H 3 years ago, and when I heard about the potential of losing trees on Melnea Cass Boulevard, the first person I called was Chuck Turner. I said, yo, Chuck, we got some issues, and I know you know the history. Can you come meet with us and explain to us the history of what's going on? And, you know, Chuck, 24 hours later, up in our office, explaining us the consequence, the history of Melnea Cass Boulevard, the protest, the struggle. And I always like to remember our ancestors, and since Chuck is one of our ancestors now, that a part of his work is here right now. And as part of our ancestors' work is living right now in this time and space. And the reason why we fight and continue to fight is out of the memory of our ancestors and the reality of the future generation that will inherit our work. So, in closing, I want to thank everybody that's here. We realize there's a lot of work to do, and we are willing to do it because we always have done it. So thank you, and have a beautiful day.